Yeah, we're gonna take it up on her memo. It's gonna be next Wednesday. 6 o'clock. I'll have a couple of guiding comments.
All right, welcome everybody for our April 19, 2023 meeting. I'd like to open up the floor for public comments for items not on the agenda for discussion, not action. Moving on to town reports. Hand it off to Vika.
Thank you. So a couple of things worth mentioning on the meeting report. The first thing is, at the last meeting, at the budget workshop between the school and Board of Selectmen, there was a discussion about adding another budget workshop. So unless it's otherwise decided by you or suggested, we'll advertise and plan for next Wednesday, April 26th, 6 p.m. here at the hall. Does that sound good at all?
Mark.
Will there be a short executive session discussion before that public session?
Yes, that's gonna be my suggestion. And that's, excuse me, going down to the dredging discussion. Mark, Bob and I met with Jordan Macy, and there's some information that is worth sharing with the entire board that aren't public yet. And so for the benefit of the budget discussion, I think it would be wise to hold a really short executive session before that budget workshop, so you're all up to date and everyone's on the same page. And then that could help with some deciding factors in the budget discussion.
Carol.
So if 5:30 is early enough, that would be my preference, so I don't have to come home on like today.
We can keep it at 6 too, if you wanna, at 6
Well, I
p.m.
mean, people, I'm fine if people are used to the meeting starting at 6. It's just so I can get home.
Yeah,
So what time is it gonna be at? 5:30 to 6.
Let's do the executive session at 5:30 to 6 and then the regular meeting at 6, which should be more than
What
enough.
about meeting with the code officer?
Are we meeting with them? Is that what we?
Should we do that next week? Okay.
Can I say one more thing
Mark.
quickly? So, at that meeting next week, we will obviously have a quick discussion about the summary of the discussions we've had with Army Corps. Now, when we get to the budget, I'm just suggesting to everyone on the select board, especially, that you take a look at where we are right now with the proposed budget for 23-24. What I mean by that is, so everybody's clear on my position, I'm not going to be very friendly in adding too much more or any at all to the existing numbers that we have. So I would look for some flexibility in some other areas, possibly some capital reserve accounts, especially that you might be willing to be flexible on. Thank you. Carol.
So for that budget meeting, so is it the last version of the budget that we got during the school joint meeting that we'll be operating on?
Yes, this is your last shot at the budget, because after that, the town office needs the time, and there will be no more opportunities to go over anything else departmentally or capital improvement. So you should be pretty well set on where you want to be with any recommendations that you have. I'm just telling you, I'm going to be probably recommending some small adjustments so that we don't go up more. That's me, okay?
So we've covered the budget and dredging. The broadband, Michael, you have an attachment, and Michael Porter provided a brief update on where things stand. The other thing worth adding to it is I had a conversation with Krista Thorpe, who's the Community Development Officer for Island Institute. We are going to apply for a broadband planning grant through the Tom Glenn Community Impact Fund. And the purpose of that grant, is going to be to offset that cost. That if you recall a few meetings back where because the broadband project is delayed due to funding and bond bank application and such, the payments will start coming before Axiom collects any funds. So we're going to be off in a year of the funds. And so the purpose of this grant is to, instead of going back to taxpayers and expecting those differences to be paid before Axiom can start paying them, it's for the grant to cover those costs.
And is that money we'll have to pay back in some fashion, or is that plus money?
It's gonna be, and there's more discussions that I need to have with her. One of the hope is that it's gonna be a grant that will be covered. If we need additional funds, if we want to be safe and secure, potential funds for next budget season, then what they would do is they would work with us where it would kind of be a loan type of a thing where they would give us the money up front so we can cover the cost. But then when we start collecting the money, we would pay it back. So, any other questions?
So that, you have an amount in mind?
I don't have any numbers off the top of my head right now, no.
So it's more of a loan than a grant? I mean,
So no, it's gonna be a grant, to cover for that, this first year. But then if there's more than what they can offer in a grant, because they're only won't be able to give so much, then the second part of it, would be kind of a loan, with no interest. That was clear.
Where are we with the CMP poll agreement?
The CMP poll agreement, I just got it back, and there was some recommendation from the attorney who had looked at it. And I plan to connect tomorrow with CMP to see if they are on board with that, and then move forward with it. So.
Right. Any other questions on this?
So just a reminder, floats are in the water. Those got put in.
Can I just say thanks to the crew for that? I know there've been some health issues and stuff, and it's been.
The next thing is, as a reminder, tomorrow the meeting is really scheduled for 4. Zoom's gonna be available at 3:30. There is a joint meeting with Long Island Board and Town Administrator. It's gonna be off of a Zoom link that was provided by Long Island account. And this is a discussion for the 2 islands to, talk about where there's some ideas that could be shared as far as barging or other areas, so.
Carol?
So I'm just not clear, because I saw someplace it was 3:30 and in here it's 4, so.
So we scheduled it for 4 o'clock, because that was, what was agreed upon by, the other, board. The Long Island Town Administrator said that he will, get the account set up at 3:30. So then if people are able to join and start the discussion earlier, he had the flexibility to do that. They have a regular scheduled meeting at 5 o'clock. So that's where he kind of.
And then my second question is there an agenda for the meeting or a list of topics we're gonna talk about?
So when we coordinated, what we had agreed upon, which was what had been recommended, by the board and their board agreed upon, were the 3 topics, which I don't remember off the top of my head, were going to be discussion points, barging, code enforcement officer, and I believe law enforcement was the other one.
or harbor master.
And then just kind of have an opportunity to also share other ideas about whether any other suggestions that could potentially move a discussion, you know, into future conversations.
Mark,
I hope I'm gonna be able to make that, but if I wasn't able to make that, is it going to be a problem? Or are we going to make a bad showing? Will there be another opportunity to meet with Long Island if I'm able? I've got a really busy week.
So from my perspective, I'm hoping that if we are getting this discussion started, that it's not just gonna be a one-time discussion and it could lead to further conversations. That's kind of where I'm looking at it
So
from.
I'm just saying, if I can't make it, I'm sorry, I'm gonna try, but I've had some changes in my subcontractor scheduling and workload.
yeah, I don't mind making a meeting, but, you know, if we're looking to make some relationship with Long Island, you know, my seat's up in June, so kind of hard to make relationships in a month. So I didn't know if you guys would be available.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can make 3:30 because I have another meeting that's gonna go that long, so it'll be shortly after that.
Yeah, I would just suggest that we hold off the conversation until everybody who's coming is there. We can just kind of chit chat for a while.
Yeah, and I think that was the point is, you know, we agreed on 4 o'clock and then he said, well, I'll have it available at 3:30. And so I didn't want to settle on that, not having had connected about that.
And is the Zoom link on the town website?
Yes, it is.
We're advertised for that, so if you get more than 3 select board members.
Yeah, advertising, yeah, that was the whole point is to
Okay,
have it be a joint. The last thing on the TA report is just kind of, a very brief update. The facilities committee has been working and meeting regularly, and a lot of progress has been made. And the plan is that at the next Board of Selectmen's meeting on May 3rd, the committee will provide a proposal for improvements to the town office, presentation of where things currently stand and, you know, possible future plans. So they just wanted me to let you know that that's coming down onto the next meeting. So, any questions?
Mark,
Will that proposal have some costs so we can
Yes.
compare it to a possible
Yes.
way to pay for it?
Yes.
You know, there's still some ARPA funds left.
Yes.
Thank you.
just a couple things, that I've mentioned before, the side of the ramps, you know, the fencing on the side of the ramps on either side, I just didn't want it.
Products have been ordered.
And then the ramp from CTC float to the commercial float, that one needs to get looked at.
That right now is in the hands of custom flows, so I
Okay.
can follow up with them,
No,
but.
I just don't want it.
Yep.
We got a email yesterday or this morning. I can't remember when you sent it, Jackie, but the ramp at Chandler's, I guess, got moved or something. We got asked to put it back. I guess it was a wooden ramp, Chandler's Cove
Okay,
at the beach.
yeah, I got that email.
If we can get that repositioned. Please. Yes.
Oh, while you're on the same topic, has the town had any update on the Yarmouth side where the wharf hits the, you know, turnaround there? Because it's really starting to kick in.
Can we send an email back to Nate, Nat Tucker, and ask him about that, when they're gonna repair that, because it's getting
It's getting
progressively
bad.
worse.
Yeah.
Bob,
I figured out.
Mark,
So the last time that discussion happened, I noticed that Matt Ridgway of CTC went directly to the Yarmouth Public Works Director, and I can't remember his name, but that seemed to be a working relationship. And so you may want to check with Matt Ridgway to see if if he has recontacted the Public Works Director of Yarmouth, or whether you should help him, or blah, blah, blah. That's what I noticed in that email chain, that.
Yeah, I think he was
Town
just
manager
included.
instantly pushed it to the
Yeah,
Public Works, so.
either way. All right, anything else to ask the town administrator? All right. Moving on to regular business, 23-031 to discuss harbor master shellfish warden job description and take any necessary action. Where we started, Mark?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the job descriptions of the Town of Big Island Harbor Master and Shellfish Warden as presented from the Coastal Waters Commission Committee.
Second, Bob?
Yes. All right, any discussion? Bob?
Just a quick question. I know there were several versions floating around. Is this the one that has been blessed by Coastal Waters and Shellfish Committee?
This is the copy, yes.
Thanks.
All right, any other comments on it? Comments from the public?
Question more than probably a comment is, I think it was last year, and I may be completely wrong on this, and I'm not sure if this is the time or the place, that there was money allocated for a new outboard for the harbor master boat, but it wasn't purchased. Is he gonna have a boat this year?
At this point, I don't think so. No.
Okay, it's just my feeling, and a bunch of other people that I've talked to, it's kind of, you know, I think a boat is imperative to his job description for obvious reasons. And the other thing too is I think there's always been money set aside for the fairway markers and the no wake markers in the, down by the stone pier, that they never seem to get put in, or they got put in and got lost. Are those gonna be installed and maintained?
I don't know, and I can look into it.
I talked to the coastal waters twice on it, and they said it was gonna happen, but it didn't last year. And I don't know if it was a budget issue or what.
So the markers, and what was the other thing?
Excuse me?
You said markers, the no wake markers?
The no wake markers and the fairway markers, which are the red and green cans out at the end of the fairway.
Mark?
So I've been at the last 2 or 3 Coastal Waters meetings, Kim, and they specifically touched on those subjects individually. The harbor master said that he was going to install the existing no wake buoy that they have laying over at the town garage somewhere. I don't know where he's gonna place it. And as far as the green and red channel buoys, one of them got taken or something at one point. I think he's got one of them still. They're gonna try to come up with the other one. So that's what I heard about that. And with respect to the boat motor, we never did agree as a select board to purchase a used or new motor for the existing boat, is what happened. And I would suggest that if you're talking for Long Island, you may want to just bring up the question, excuse me, do they own a boat? Would there be any interest in talking about leasing or sharing a vessel? Thank you.
Yes.
I thought it was a state mandate that we had to have a harbor master boat if we tried for moorings.
I don't know.
We're required to have a harbor master, but I don't recall seeing anything in the statute that a boat is a requirement.
If I recall from last year, 2 years ago, the big problem with the boat was the getting an engine. There just weren't engines. For whatever reason, had to do with COVID, I think. But they're not our engines. So that's no longer really a problem. That's something to look into.
Tongue in cheek, the boat that beached on Bennett's Cove Beach might be had.
Any other
You
comments?
got a boat, right? You guys got a boat, it only needs more.
I believe so. I don't think the boat's been inspected or anything, but yeah,
Does it have to be Coast Guard inspected?
No.
I don't think so, but I mean, looked at, I don't know if
Only if they carry.
if it floats.
No, it's,
All right, we got a motion on the table. All in favor? All right. Moving on. All right, next one, 23-032 to discuss the proposal provided by James Kim Bean to request for loan or lease of equipment, processing of junk cars, and take any necessary action. All right. You want to give some kind of presentation, Kim, or?
Yeah, I guess all of everybody in the board has seen this. Those that you don't know me, James Kim Bain, resident, taxpayer, blah, blah, blah. The past 20 years, I've been dealing with junk cars. And with the help of some others, we've removed over 1,200 unwanted vehicles off the island. Lots of scrap, lots of home heating oil tanks, things of this nature. It's been a labor of love, and I don't mind doing it. As I get older, I don't do it quite as easily, and I've lost my health because of COVID and things of this nature. When the market was good, I did make some pretty good money. I put that aside, invested in more equipment. Last couple of years, operating costs have tripled. That includes fuel, barging, insurance, equipment update, et cetera, et cetera. Scrap prices are lower. And right now I'm working pretty much at a deficit. The intent of this loan is not to promote my financial gain, but to basically see if the town will provide equipment that could be either loaned or leased to me or whoever was removing cars. Hopefully sometime in the future, someone's going to pick this ball up and run with it. What I'm looking for is a pan, material to build a pan to keep in with federal, state, and local guidelines for draining the gasoline out of these vehicles before I put them on my truck to barge them off for safety reasons. Again, this is no gain to me. It's to make things a little more financially attractive to maybe the next person coming down the road. Asking for some material to build a pan. Pump to remove the gasoline, which I've already purchased, bought. Pump to remove the oil and transmission fluid. And I've also procured at no cost a couple 55-gallon drums for the disposal of the fluids, and the DEP also provides me with oil weights at no cost, with the agreement that I don't sell them, I just use them for cleaning up the town. I guess that's about it. Oh, the fluids that I do collect go to the town waste oil burner, and it averages about 250 gallons a year.
Thank you. Any comments? Any questions? Don't all talk at once.
Well, I'm just, is there any issue providing funding directly to an individual? To perhaps flow through some community organization?
Well, this wouldn't be direct to me. It would be something that the town would allocate, say, to the road department, maintenance
Public
group,
Works.
public works, thank you. And then myself or whoever was doing it could lease it for $1 a year or some stipend. And then if they decided that they didn't want me to do it or someone else could do it, then that material and equipment would be available to someone else.
So you're really asking for the town to acquire these? Is
I'm
that
asking the town to do what?
town to acquire these materials? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And this is all done under the auspices of aquifer protection.
No, I know. I mean, it has been very effective, I'm sure.
And I have some numbers if you want me to divulge them as far as removing unwanted vehicles, the non-running ones are the issue. The running ones, obviously, I just drive on and off the barge. That's easy peasy. The ones that aren't running, they have to be dug out of the dirt, towed to my house, processed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the ones that are, you know, not profitable, if you will.
Wouldn't this way be a lot less expensive than the way they did it in the seventies? They took every junk out of the dump, put them on the stone pier, a barge come down and process them all off with a crane, and it was a mess. And nowadays, the parking on stone pier couldn't stand that. I mean, it's, anyway, with the way they did it years ago, 2011. Kim's doing it the best way. Buying a semi.
Thank you.
And a crane.
Yeah.
No, that's my opinion.
All right, Mark?
Could I ask a couple of questions directly to Kim? Kim, I know that you've been doing this for a while, and it's been beneficial to the island and the community overall, and I appreciate that. Giving funds directly to an individual with public taxpayer money is probably not something that I'm gonna be able to back. So if there's a way to run this, if we consider this, if there's a way to run this through our public works department, that's probably the only way that I could probably keep a straight face to the rest of the taxpayers with public taxpayer money. I'm just laying that out for you.
Oh, no, I agree 100%. I just, you know, I can't overemphasize that.
Yeah.
It's not for me, it's to try to get some money approved for the
I
public
understand.
works.
And when you say process the vehicles at your residence, has there been any questions or concerns from neighbors or abutters about that activity at your property?
Yeah, that's a very good question. There has been, and I've tried to placate those neighbors. First thing is the junkyard ordinance. If you read that very carefully, it says you can only have not more than 2 unregistered, uninspected, which doesn't apply to us, unserviceable vehicles for more than 90 days. And I get by that by I rotate the crop. The cars are never sitting there more than 90 days. I take them 2 at a time up to my house.
Right.
And I had a helper, and what we were doing was removing the gas tanks, setting them aside and then draining them. I no longer have my helper, so I'm working with a machine. And it's just too dangerous for me to get underneath
Yeah,
the vehicle with the machine. So what this pump would do would be to extract the fuel. And this pan is to put the vehicle on. So that's my impervious surface,
yeah.
which
no,
meets all the guidelines.
I understand. And as you know, I'm not trying to be holier than thou. I grew up in a junkyard, which you've helped nearly clean up down there at the
Well, that's
west
still an
end.
ongoing
So
process.
I understand the concerns, and Cumberland paid a visit to my family's property more than once and said, get this place cleaned up or else kind of came and never really came. So that's the only reason I'm asking this question. And the other question that I would ask of you and all of us is if we direct some money for possible benefit to the community, if you will, with helping getting junk cars and oil tanks and et cetera removed from the island, could it be allowed to be partially performed on the property of our town garage yard or something? I'm just throwing that out there. And I understand that there's an old dirt pit there, so that may not be the best choice for aquifer protection, but I'm just trying to find a way to consider this request in a way that might be explainable to the taxpayers and myself.
To answer your question, it can, but it's difficult, and here's why. If a private individual does this, there's, you know, the DEP regs are like this. If the town get involved, the regs are like this. You know, they would have to go to special training and be recertified every year.
Yeah,
And it would cut into the work that they are.
no, I'm not, and I wasn't,
You mean, if I do it over there,
yeah,
then there's the issue with, you know, I don't have the tools or the equipment and stuff like that over there.
okay.
I'd much prefer.
I wasn't suggesting our employees. I was suggesting an individual with a release form from the town of Shebig
Yeah,
or
but then the
something, but
town-
maybe it's not that simple.
It isn't. You know, I've explored a lot of different avenues, and I think there would be a whole lot of issues with me working on town property with respect to liability, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so I don't want to take up the whole meeting. I just want to let you and everybody know where I probably will end up tonight. I may not have given this enough thought and have enough information from, I don't know, legal, our insurance company, so on and so forth, to approve this tonight. But I'm thinking about it.
Well, there's been one well that's already been compromised because of vehicles. I'd like to think that there would be no more. And somebody, when I was walking in here tonight, or maybe it was earlier today, they said, the problem is I've made it too easy on the town. I'm trying to get the town, and I've gone to a million other groups too. I've gone to all these island associations, it's state, DEP, everybody, and there's no money out there unless you're 503C non-profit.
But, yeah.
And the nonprofits won't give me any money, again, as you say, they won't give an individual money, but they, I think it's a step. I'd like to think this administration is finally gonna do something. And again, it's not for me, it's for, you know, maybe somewhere down the road, if I'm not here doing cars, maybe somebody else can pick up the ball and have this equipment. And I've also made personal outlay of like about $80,000 in the past 4 years for loaders and excavators, and chop saws, things of this nature to process these cars.
Mhm.
Any comments?
It might be a question, or maybe you know, Kim, how Long Island handles their junk car.
Long Island?
You know, since we're going to,
They barge them off, and I don't know what arrangements they have with Coley or anybody else. As far as, the problem is CTC will not let me put a non-running vehicle on the barge. But on the other hand, CTC has been very good that they let me put running vehicles on, they transport them for free. And it's not just me, it's anybody can do that, anybody returning a junk car. It's the non-running vehicles. Plant that has the barging, I think he charges them like $50, and there's somebody there that pushes them on, and then they take them to Portland and they drag them off. Which, because of CTC, it won't work. And if I go plant from here, it's $300 a vehicle, which you don't get that much on the vehicle back.
So how do you get the non-running vehicles off now?
I have equipment that after I process them, I load them onto my truck, and hopefully 2 at a time, and then take them over, because that's, if I don't do 2 at a time, then I lose money.
So you're taking them off on a flatbed on CTC?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the only way I can get them off.
And are they charging you for that activity?
The flatbed?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Barge rates went up this year.
Bob?
I struggle with the town funding an operation that's in the residential zone. And I understand you've gone to great lengths to try to make it fit, but without this going through site plan review, I struggle with the town providing money to an individual business, regardless of how noble it is, which is clearly noble and needed. But in particular, when it's in a residential zone and hasn't gone through any sort of hearing process that I'm aware of, I have a hard time saying, let's do money.
I'm registered for a home business. I was when I first moved to the island.
I'm not aware that home business includes processing of unrunning vehicles.
It was for the electrical, but I could reapply, I guess, if I had to. You know, my question is, if I don't do it, who is?
I understand that's a question, and that's why I refer to it as a noble business, but it's a bad solution to a big problem is still a bad solution. And the town providing money to individuals is not a process that I think we should be getting into.
Well, again, you know, I guess it would be the same as if I went up and asked the town, could I borrow a broom to sweep the sidewalk in front of my house? Only on a bigger scale.
Fine.
I guess I don't understand the reluctance to basically hire or contract with an individual to do something. Town contracts with companies do things all the time. They may be not individuals, but companies, but some of them are surely single proprietors. Because I don't see the problem.
I don't think that's what's being proposed here is to contract with Kim. That's not what I'm hearing. And so that would be a different situation to contract that service and, you know, then we would be required to, for him to probably to have insurance and other things, and it would have to be in an appropriately cited place. So, but what we're talking about is not a contract, right?
That's correct. You bring up a good point, Carol. If this doesn't fly, then I ask two things. Number one, come up with something that will fly. Or I can come up with another proposal, because I talked to the former Cumberland town manager that when we did that massive cleanup,
Yeah.
how many ever years ago that was, that he handed me a fairly substantial check without me asking for it, because we were part of Cumberland then. And I said, what this for? And he said, that's for getting a huge monkey off my back. And I don't know how he did that. So I called him up today. I said, how do you do that? And he said, basically, we considered it a contract. So if I have to come to the town and say, okay, I'm asking for blank, and I will guarantee to take as many junk cars off the island that I can, as long as the people pay the stipend that I ask, then I'll do that. But
I think personally, that's kind of, I guess I need to understand. I think I support what you've been doing. I was involved when we had so the DEP brought over their big crusher and you removed over 100 cars, you and Wayne. And that was very.
actually, it was 275.
Right, it was a lot of cars but you know, they had a system set up to kind of collect all the fluids and do that. So I think for myself, I think this is a very important service. I think a contractual arrangement might be preferable for the reasons we've all described. So I think we can explore that, but I am totally committed to working with you to see if we can come up with a system to remove junk and disabled cars.
All right, you know what? I know other people got other things to do, so I would like to withdraw my proposal at this time.
Thank you for your proposal, Kim, and my questions were kind of to that point. If we decide to back this as a town and a community, I just want to make sure it's, you know, somewhat defendable, and we have a plan that looks like it's not going to continue any more concerns from anyone, from neighbors and abutters that may exist or not in certain neighborhoods. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Moving on to 23-033 to review ordinance changes as proposed by the planning board and take any necessary action. All right. Are there any questions?
The
John, do you have any
I guess what I'd
comments?
ask is.
Yeah.
We can do this a number of ways. If you have, just want to ask questions about what you've seen, that's fine, or I don't think you want to go line by line through these, because there are a lot of the edits are administrative edits, not important. Or I could present it's like a double album. I could present the greatest hits, and we could just go from there.
So is this to approve this before it goes to a public meeting? Is that,
I think that's the process.
So there is a public hearing that is going to take place. The planning board is required to have a public hearing. And that is going to be on 5/4 at 6 p.m. at the rec center, where it will allow people the opportunity to, comment on whether they approve these or not.
Yep.
Or if that's it up, that will be an opportunity for the public to, discuss.
but what I meant was basically this is for us to review and to, okay, to bring to the hearing.
Correct.
All right, Carol.
So I guess this is for us to provide comments, but I don't think we're approving these. I mean, it goes to public hearing, then those, if there's any changes, those get incorporated, it's gonna go on the warrant. And the town meeting approves it, right? So
That's right.
the
Yeah.
select board's role is just to say, have a good public hearing.
Yeah, and certainly comments and advice.
Right, but
It's all
I mean, we don't need to.
Yeah,
approve
that's what I meant.
Okay.
I misspoke, sorry.
There doesn't need to be a motion from the selectmen to allow them to move forward, correct?
There does or
No,
Yeah.
sorry.
Question for John, Mayor?
Yes,
John, I know there was recent conversation with another board about the number of members, and just for everybody's benefit. It's come to the attention of several people that the number of people our ordinances have required for a couple different boards, specifically Planning Board and Board of Appeals, is a holdover from Cumberland. Back when we just adopted their ordinances by word processing, the word should be wherever it said Cumberland. For example, what John's planning board chair and the planning board has proposed here is changing the number of members of the planning board down to a level that's acceptable for towns under 1,000. Whereas in the past, the number we've used is what's required for towns over 1,000. The same is true for the Board of Appeals. The Board of Appeals for the town of Shabig is legally required to be 3, but by our ordinance is required to be 5. So that's just background info for everybody. Question for John is, I think the number of people on the Board of Appeals is specified in language in the zoning ordinance.
In the zoning ordinance.
Okay. Have you contemplated changing that one as well?
When we get to doing the zoning.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's not gonna happen this go round.
No.
Gotcha.
No,
Okay.
no.
And then my next question would be, at that hearing on, was that May 4th, you said?
Correct.
Will there also be coverage of the prior?
So there's gonna be these 2 ordinance changes. In additional, there's going to be 3 additional changes that were proposed in 2020. And the correct process was not taken. There wasn't a public hearing, and because of the type of changes, because of the type of ordinances that they were, it was recommended to do it the right way. So no new changes have come forward. The planning board at this point, through conversation with John, have decided that they're gonna work on the changes that they've been, tasked to do with. But what's gonna be going are only the proposed changes that came forth a couple of years ago, just to properly adopt them. So we're taking the proper steps.
So we're doing these and those prior 3 at that May 4 meeting, 5 in total?
Yeah, and those will, so we sent out the notice to the newspaper, planning board is aware of it. We have the hearing notice posted. And we, as of tomorrow, I have them, but we'll have them up front for people available. And then I'm also going to put a link on the website so everyone can see exactly what those proposed changes are.
You know, these, I went through them in detail. It's great to me. So thank you.
Yeah.
Planning work for doing this.
Carol,
So I guess the only big departure to me from kind of our current mode of operation is having a non-island resident on the planning board, right? Potentially. So I guess there are two questions I have. So one is that, and sort of maybe you can explain your thinking around that. And then the other thing is, I think you allow for all, what you called alternates, right?
Yeah, associates, that alternate would be as good a word.
Right, well, I'm used to the term alternate, but one of the things I think on the board that I was working with recently, and I did actually email MMA about this, but they, in order to participate in a hearing, in a, review of an application, they had to be there for the whole application.
Yep.
And so is that in this?
That is not, I left that at the chair's discretion. An associate can be called in to be in on a decision. Should it appear that there will be less than a quorum able to deliberate on that particular decision. So they would, again, that would be, I left it a little vague, and I left it to the chair's discretion to make sure that, and then the chair will make certain that that person is fully aware and attends it. It's not just bringing in somebody from the book.
Well, and that's my question, because I know that the other ordinance that I've seen, that's what they clarify, is that you can't just bring somebody in for the final vote. So, but that isn't explicitly outlined here.
I would say not, it's not in so many.
So has the town attorney reviewed this?
No.
I don't know whether it's required to have the language in there, but other ordinances I've seen do. And it might be worth having the town attorney, before we go to public hearing, at least have the town attorney make sure these are, in compliance, unless you object.
No.
I don't know how other.
It'd be fine to have them reviewed.
That's the only thing I worry about, because I get what you're saying, it's up to the chairman, but I think I think the concern is that people don't bring in somebody who they know how they're gonna vote at the last minute and change the outcome.
Right.
And sometimes it gets very contentious in communities. We're not like that, right? But,
Carol, can I ask, are you asking about point number 2 on page 1 within that language? Under the planning board ordinance?
associate members, yeah.
May attend and participate, that green language, that's what you're looking for clarification from, just to make sure that we're.
So the term that I've often seen is alternates. So usually it's the planning board and then they might have 2 alternates. And that my understanding is, and this is the question for Natalie or whoever, is do we need language that says in order for the alternate to vote on an application, they have to have been present for the entire, review of that application, something like that. I think she'll know what that means. And it's just, I don't want this to, I think if we're gonna bring this to public hearing, we just wanna make sure it's legally defensible. I don't need it in there. I just wanna make sure it passes.
I can forward them to her, just have her, I can't imagine it's gonna take a long time to.
No,
Bob,
Yeah, I would just offer an opinion on that question. The plus of having the option of bringing in an associate or an alternate when there's not a quorum present for reasons of absence that are out of control is so that we don't wind up stuck without a quorum and being able to make a decision. The downside is if they weren't there for the prior meetings, but I can imagine a scenario in which the hearing was extended for reasons of gathering further information, and a person who was at the first meeting 3 weeks later is all of a sudden medically unable or for some other reason unable to be there. In which case, do you say, well, we are no longer gonna have a quorum, so we can't have the hearing? Or do you provide the option of an alternate and make sure that that alternate is brought up to speed on the details, minutes, findings of fact, that kind of thing from the prior meeting? I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm just saying it's kind of a damn if you do, damn if you don't kind of thing.
Well, in my experience, the alternates, in some cases, if it's a really big case, they'll attend the whole process and be sort of the backup plan. They're also important if somebody has a conflict.
Mark,
Yeah, I don't have a dog in the fight either, but it's probably a good question to get legal advice on, whether it's important.
Yeah, I think it's kind of de facto, if, say I was chair, I brought an associate in at the last, an alternate in at the last moment. Whoever got ruled against would go immediately to Superior Court and have it thrown out. I mean, that would
But,
be,
and that's what I'm trying to.
yeah, no, that's, so, like I said, a good chair wouldn't do that.
Right,
Because it would be.
and I
it would be-
believe,
it would
I
be
believe
very
you wouldn't
short-sighted.
do that, but I believe in some towns, it might happen. And since it's a quasi judicial board, it seems important.
So there might need another line in there, you know, having attended the entire
So
proceeding.
whatever I'm sure there's some lingo.
And likewise, the word alternate instead of associate.
Yeah, Natalie could advise on that.
I'm not wed to the word. So,
Me neither.
yeah, that would be fine. I saw that, finally, Haven has two, all, they call them alternates. So
That's the common term, I
Yeah.
think.
that I think would be a good change.
sorry.
And I think you had a question about the non-resident potential.
Non-island resident.
Non-island resident. Maine law says it's gotta be 18, you gotta be a citizen of the US and a resident of the state of Maine. And we had, our original ordinance had said, and a resident of the town of Spring Island. I think that's probably likely to be pretty much always the case. I would hate to leave money on the table if someone came along, wanted to be on the planning board, was a resident of Augusta and also had a place out here, been coming out here for their life, knew the island inside and out, probably better than I do. I'd hate, and they also had knowledge of planning or a legal background. I'd hate to leave something like that, to say, oh, you can't do it. Again, it's still at the discretion of the select board.
Right.
There's not a requirement that anybody, a non-resident be placed on the board. Likewise, also there's language in here that limits, they've got to be 4 existing resident, should be non-resident members before we could appoint a non-resident.
So do you know, are there other communities that set it up that way?
I don't know, I assume that other communities may have a non-resident, a Maine resident who's not a town resident on their planning boards, probably to draw in expertise or something like that.
And
But
then, yeah, and then my last question relates to, say you have somebody who does live in Augusta. I think you had some change to the meeting format. So are you, I guess I don't know the rules, there's some kind of rules about public meetings. So can somebody attend remotely, like I did for this in-person meeting, or how does it work?
So the Board of Selectmen have a remote participation policy, and it has specific requirements as to the reasons why they can attend. And unless other boards have specific communication policies, then they typically automatically follow kind of the suit of what the board has. So in this case, if they choose to do a remote, it would be a situation where it's either a whole board would do a remote participation, or if one person wants to join, there has to be a specific reason, like in your case, you were not on the island or you were sick.
So I guess that'd be one thing to explore to make sure you're covered, because you could adopt your own policy. You might want to, particularly if you had a member that was not living on the island that didn't want to come in. It might be safer or clearer to just adopt your own policy. Is that right?
Yeah.
Because ours are pretty specific about how you can participate. Not being, not
Physically.
physically present.
I guess my thought on this, why I included it originally, why the planning board approved it, was in the instance that we go through another pandemic or something similar to that, where we did meet by Zoom. It would be good to have that actually. And in the, in the ordinance saying that we can meet that way should we need to. It seemed that would be a good thing to do.
Right, and so that's kind of after the whole COVID thing, the state of Maine came out with these guidelines. Speak is way more familiar with them than I am, but they made it hard to then go back to a hybrid meeting. Am I right about that?
Correct. The policy the Board of Selectmen has set up right now, we can't do a hybrid meeting just because, 2 of you want to participate remotely and 2 of you want to be in person. There has to be specific reasons why it can't be attended. Unless the whole board votes to do a remote participation. So it's kind of one or the other, and it's, if you're sick, if you're out of town, those are specific reasons.
I just don't want you to get stuck on that.
So just as a side question, would it be all right if the entire board were to meet via publicly
Yes.
set, but the hybrid may be an issue?
Yeah, so the way that it's set up right now is if you want to, and we have, facilities committee does it on a regular basis, the board meets via Zoom. And the whole board, that's the expectation. And I can send you the current participation policy so you can look over it to see.
That'd be great. I would be glad to do a couple of things, change. I don't think, and I'll talk to the planning board members to make sure it's okay. Change associate to alternate. Be glad to add one indicating that said alternate being brought in on a decision would have to have been present for all deliberations.
Yeah, I think you could let Natalie give you the, if it's not a requirement, don't constrain yourself, but if it is, let Natalie advise.
But it's something that's what I would expect anyway.
Yeah.
So that, I don't think that's
Okay,
not onerous.
yep.
And other than that, those Carol picked out the 2 big ones.
We have a comment.
I have a couple of things. One, a board of selectmen set in for an alternative meeting of the other town committees. Because aren't you guys aware sort of what they're discussing? So if you had a 3-person committee and one was out, couldn't it rotate?
Not legally allowed.
It's not appropriate because each board has their own authority separately on.
Yeah, they gotta go through the town council to get anything they
Nope.
come up with. No, they can make their own rules and regulations and pass them.
Decisions. We're like kings.
So-
We're like kings. We can do anything.
So these changes don't go to us, they go to town meeting.
So if you want to start a new business, you apply to the planning board for that business.
But they have to present it to the town, to the Allen Council before it's approved.
Nope.
If they grant your request, then you have a license to run a business.
The planning board, the individual members of any town boards get appointed by the Board of Selectmen. So
Right.
the Board of Selectmen makes that decision. With ordinance changes and decisions such as this, they go
Sorry, I
to
didn't
town
mean to-
meeting, so the voters
Sorry,
make the ultimate decision. So if this gets proposed and the voters don't vote, it doesn't get adopted.
Okay. And the next thing is, this is deja vu. When I was on the committees in the 70s, this is the same conversation that was going on. Back then it was summer residents as opposed to island residents being on committees. Now, that's been 50 years and it hasn't been resolved, so something's gotta be resolved. And I don't know if anybody here that remembers the fiasco went on when they moved the cars off the island. They took over most of the stone pier, it was covered with glass and crap all the time. And nobody cleaned it up, and there's no place to park on the wall, period, they took it all. That's how they transferred the junk cars, they'd bring down 50 of them or something,
That was a lot.
and pile them on the wall, one on top of each other, they were dangerous. But then they bring a barge in and a crane and take them off, it took forever. Whatever, I don't know what Kim's trying to get across here, but whatever he's doing is much better than it was in the 70s. If there's any way that the town could help that situation, I think it's very important to get that junk off the island. And there's still a number of cars buried on the bid, regardless of what you guys know. And I was told that the people were buried them.
All right.
All you gotta do is get a metal detector.
As a groundwater person, I totally support getting the junk cars off the island. But as a groundwater person, I also feel compelled to make sure it's done appropriately. And that's how I feel.
All right, we're on topic on that. But,
But I
thank
mean,
you.
Shebid can't be unique on disposing of junk cars.
Yeah.
It can't be. I mean, the coast of Maine is pretty alone.
Yep.
I know what they used to do with junk on Cliff Island, you just throw it out in the wall. You go skin diving over there, it's full of refrigerators and all kinds of junk, dryers and washing machines. We don't want that to happen.
Yep,
And when I was a kid, the older people went up to the East End Port and throw their trash overboard. Right where the road turns to go towards Old John's, because there's such a time and everybody used to throw it. And I've never seen any residue from that, that's been going on for 150 years. But I don't want that to start again either.
but, thank you.
That's just my opinion, and everybody has one. No, I can't get one from Spain.
All right, thank you very much. All right, John.
The only other things quickly I'd say, with the growth management ordinance, took out some language that made it seem like you could carry growth permits over, but then there were contradictory lines, so I just made it clearer that they're 4 per year. If you don't use them up, they don't carry over. If you get 4, that's all you get that year. So it just said that there was no redundancy in that, in the language. And then the other thing that we changed, the word change was to get rid of the $100 fee, but say that the select board would set that fee as part of their schedule of fees for road permits.
That's good.
Gives it a little more flexibility that rather than having to redo the ordinance anytime you wanted to change that fee.
Just to comment on that, should we come up with a fee schedule to propose at the same time,
Well, and
in
I
case
guess-
it's asked?
Yeah, I looked at the planning board to make a suggestion on what the fee should be. If you guys think it should go up or stay the same. I mean, I think it's good to take it out of the ordinance.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's gotta get passed first, and that's the
Yeah,
discussion.
I would wait to have that discussion until after we go through the
Yeah.
process.
Well, the reason I'm asking is if at town meeting there, it's asked.
at
We
town
just give
meeting,
them,
but
we just
public
tell them.
hearing, at town meeting, we should, I don't know.
Until it's.
So do we just, I just want us to be all on the same page, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Whether we tell them, we didn't discuss this, we're waiting for the ordinance to pass, is a fine answer to me, I just wanted to. Mark,
Very quickly, did we scratch that $100 because this board and the planning board and maybe the town administrator feel that it's too low?
No, we didn't scratch
We've been in
it,
the process of moving
just taking it out.
fees as being a fixed fee prescribed by ordinance into a table of fees so that the select board has flexibility to change fees as required.
She's just removing it from an ordinance, moving out of a fee schedule.
Correct, yes.
But is the amount in question? That's my
I think that's a
question.
decision to be made after the decision is made to move it or not.
Okay,
Does the planning board have a suggestion as to whether it's too high, too low?
Have not discussed the actual number.
15,000.
Yeah, and very quickly, I'll be quick.
Yeah.
And I agree that the growth ordinance, management ordinance probably did not mean a carryover if they weren't all used, so I'm glad that that's being clarified. Was the sentence also +2 additional growth permits that shall be for affordable housing constructed by a non-for-profit organization? Has that always been in there?
Yeah.
That is always been in there.
Okay, thank you.
And I didn't change that, or we didn't change that.
So to answer your question, there was talk about, increasing the number because of $100 having a lot of, there's a lot that goes on with that $100, just writing the permits and doing all that. So we weren't getting our money for the amount of work that was going.
Seems low to me, so don't come to me for a recommendation, I'll give you one.
I think we put it out to auction.
No.
Sorry. Yes, Vika.
Last year, the code enforcement officer made a recommendation and proposed, suggested changes to increase to the different fees around building permits. And the recommendation for this particular fee was $1,000 instead of $100, knowing that it had to go through the ordinance. So that's, I think, was part as to how the discussion started in terms of taking that out of there in addition to that. So there has been a number suggested by a code enforcement officer, relatively comparable to what other towns would charge for that.
I forgot about that, thank you.
And I think that the small elephant in the room is the number 4. We've not discussed that. I've heard some stirrings towards that being too low, and probably there's some people that feel it's too high. So I've looked at it really on a very simplistic level. If you figure 4 houses a year with roughly 2 people, it's sort of a bump in population growth of 2% or a little under, which is not unreasonable, and that's about as good an opinion I can have. I know during downturn years, there have been few to none, and during this last little boomlet, there were more applicants than there were permits. And I think that's just the nature of the market. So I don't know that 4 is an unreasonable number, but it's something that theoretically under ordinance, the planning board's supposed to review every 3 years. And we will.
So I think with the public hearing and then with the town meeting, you'll get your answer.
We'll get some feedback, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right, any other questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Carol.
To you guys.
I just wanted to remind John that I don't know where there's more legislation going through on this ADU thing, but they did approve the bill that's providing funding for assistance to towns to improve the ordinances. So we should, not immediately, but the planning board may wanna, or the town may wanna apply for some of those to help. So that's for technical assistance to update our ordinances, because the other thing to keep in mind with the growth permit thing is this ADU thing, accessory dwelling unit, is exempt from the growth permit requirements. So that allows people to add another structure on their property. They don't have to follow all the other rules, including the growth permit. So we could see an increase.
I think those exemptions are for areas that are special growth areas. The last I read, it's like a moving target, but last I read is that ADUs per se are not above and beyond your growth ordinance.
So that could be, the public hearing I went to was definitely exempt from,
Yeah.
but it is a moving target. But the
Yeah.
bottom line is, it will all shake out when this legislative session is done. theoretically it's supposed to be implemented in July of 2023. They're asking for it to be delayed. And so I think it probably will be because it's kind of
I
ludicrous to
think
think.
MMA is looking to 2025.
Right.
But, and I know that rulemaking is going on. I've read the rulemaking that's come out so far, and it's in, not stark, but somewhat contrast to what's written in the law.
Right, so
So
I
it's-
went to the rulemaking and it was very different than the
Yeah,
law, which is
yeah.
concerning, so.
Very, so I think there's a.
A lot of anxiety for small towns,
Exactly,
especially.
exactly.
Mark, Carol, you're saying that there may be some money available for some technical assistance for our local land.
Yeah, and it's sort of under this ADU thing that we will have to implement, but it can be used for the whole thing. So we should take advantage of that.
Yeah, but basically, that would help with rewriting the zoning ordinance,
Right.
which is what we're embarking on right now. So just as a slight pitch, and then I'll get out of your hair, if you have thoughts about how you would like to see the zoning ordinance modified, or there are tripwires in there that you don't like, or please let us know. Because that's where we are.
When are your meetings again, please?
They're the second Monday every month, so the next one will be on the 8th of May.
And they're obviously well posted, well
Yep.
advertised on them.
And then you take suggestions from residents and non-residents.
We'll take all suggestions.
Okay, just wanted to put it out there.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions for John?
Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you very much.
That's great, thank you.
All right, moving on. 23-034 to discuss the mooring fee and take any necessary action. All right, we have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve these mooring fees as presented from the Coastal Water Committee. Would you like me to read them?
I don't think it's necessary.
Thank you.
Seconded by Bob. All right, any discussion on these? Yes,
Again, how can we have a hard method checking on the warrants if we don't have a way to get up there and vote, look at it? This is kind of stupid to me. We gotta vote, we gotta have a method. Why don't we use it? And put a little more rules and regulation on how the method position job. I mean, if we got it, let's use it. Let's throw it away, we might never get a vote again. You know, because then it goes from a $10,000 award or whatever to a $50,000 vote, you know. It's always, years ago, it's all the town of Cumberland, if they get a piece of new equipment, they want to keep it, maintain it, and replace it at an appropriate depreciation time. This just throwing the vote away, to me, they're just throwing it away. They leave it up to the town office, I drive to, and it's curious, I go to have my handbag.
all right, thank you. Art?
Specific to the fees, I have been at some of the meetings, and I was a little surprised that the fishermen there's some good fishermen on these committees, and they're the ones that not only backed these increases, but made the motion and the second and voted unanimously to do it. These fees are low in comparison to some other places around us, by the way. They're not very high. $25 is what I paid for my mooring last year. Gonna go up to 50. Go get a mooring in Yarmouth or Falmouth or Portland or Freeport or and tell me what you pay for your mooring over there, first of all. Second of all, I agree with Bruce. At some point, we're gonna have to address this boat issue, and we haven't addressed it yet. So if I don't make that meeting, maybe you guys can just ask Long Island, about their boat, and their answer may be, we're not interested in talking about that with you, but it's a place to start. So if we keep this position in this town going, and we expect an individual to make sure people are placing their moorings correctly, rigging their moorings correctly, which is another area where we're not very stringent. Other towns are very stringent on how you rig your mooring and what type of materials you use. So if we keep this position going moving forward, we're probably gonna have to have some kind of a vote.
All right, any other comments? All right, all in favor? Oh, sorry.
I just for a reference perspective, right now, we average about $9,000 in mooring revenue. So this small increase is gonna double the revenue, allowing more of an opportunity to have, additional funds to look into buying engines and things like that, so.
The harbor master doesn't have to have a Queen Mary, I mean, they can have a reasonable boat to go around the island, the other islands. And aren't we supposed to patrol the moorings on the other islands or should they don't? Do they charge more fees on that?
Yeah. Yeah,
So how is he gonna check it to know that everybody's up to date on them?
Yeah.
When I lived in Yarmouth in the eighties, my mooring fee was $50 to Cousins Island, and that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that was being a resident.
all right, so we got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Could I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm wondering if Michael might be waiting for this one.
Yeah, you can do
Could I
that.
ask him?
Michael, you waiting for the, broadband, the bond anticipated?
Sort of, I'm sure.
You know,
I'm very kind of inertia.
if that's all you're here for, is what we're asking, we could skip to that if you'd like.
Okay. Nice, yeah.
All right, permission to move 23-038 to approve a bond anticipation order for broadband out of order. All right. So, Michael or Vika, want to talk about that, or?
So the bond anticipation order, this is just, the town took out a main bond bank. Because of the type of money that it was considered bad money, so we only received a fraction of it. Now, we are hoping to receive, the other half of it, and this is just, more so, a formality from the bond bank's perspective. You already signed, the board has already signed one of these, but they just want an updated one with the updated numbers on it. So that's really all this is.
Okay, you want us to sign it tonight?
I need a motion for you to authorize so to approve the bond anticipation order as stated on this document and just sign it.
All right, Bob,
Motion to approve the bond anticipation order for broadband as shown on the document titled Township Big Island Orders of the Select Board, authorizing issue of up to $725K, principal amount, etc.
is there a second?
Second.
All right, any more discussion on this? Mark?
A little bit separate from this, I would just like to thank and recognize Michael Porter and the Broadband Committee for all of their efforts for securing, I think, around $1 million in grant money. Is that right, Michael?
That's right, it was increased.
And that has,
Usually 800,000, now it's 975.
and I didn't mean to leave anyone else out, if anyone else was involved in helping you, but that's a success story. Getting it installed may be a little more of a challenge, but
Well, we're working on it.
if we can get the internet upgraded on this island to fiber optic and pay a lot less than we thought we were gonna have to pay, that's gonna be a good thing. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. You saw I tried to, I guess, outline, not been too many words on it in that before. What done and how it worked out.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right, all in favor? All right. Thank you very much.
Have you sign this? and
Yeah,
I don't have
Do
to
that right now, so.
corral you tomorrow.
Jen, I don't know when she's coming back, so. You wanna put the
No,
19th?
that's, oh, I'll fill that out.
Okay.
I thought you were gonna date it on Jen's signature. I'm like,
No.
oh, good.
No. All right, moving on to 23-035 to consider the formation of a ad hoc committee that would develop recommendations on how best to execute the role of road commissioner, including but not limited to rolling road commissioner responsibilities into the role of the road plan committee. Eric.
I think that's fine. I also think it could be a committee that meets once. You know what I mean? Maybe it needs to be a committee, but I mean, I think it should be just people sitting down and figuring out where to go from here. So I didn't know if you wanted to go through the whole rigmarole of kind of accepting applications and, you know, we seem to have trouble populating all these committees, right?
Yeah. But I think we need, I think where we've gone with this, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but was to appoint the committee as road commissioner or a quasi road commissioner.
That would be one possible outcome of the ad hoc committee's work, and that could take one meeting to get done, or it might take more than one. But the ad hoc committee was to specifically come up with recommendations as to how to fulfill the role of road commissioner and to include the possibility of in some way wrapping the existing or the formerly existing road plan committee into that. That was the intent, but to get a small group together just to figure out what's the right way to go on.
Okay, Carol.
So my only question is, and it's really for you and Vika, is, you know, is it necessary to create an ad hoc committee to accomplish that objective? Or is there an easier way to do it that we don't have to, you know, assign people? I guess Mark maybe that's an idea.
Mark.
I think there's an easier way to get there. Any recommendations gonna have to come back to this select board and the town administrator and the public for consideration. Right now, by default, the select board is the present road commissioner. Town administrator felt that it was good to take that off of her plate. And so that's the present situation. I'd like to suggest that Bob and I sit down together, toss this thing around, take some questions and comments from people if they come into us, and maybe talk to some other small towns or people that have road commissioner, road work experience, and come back with a recommendation of a possible model and see where it goes.
I'd be fine with that.
All right.
Yeah, that'll be hot.
Something.
MMA has a really good manual that really goes into kind of the legal details about
Yeah,
what the road commissioner's procedures are and things like that. We have a copy of it in the office.
right. And just
You
for
want a copy to borrow?
just for full disclosure, I was gonna suggest to Bob that we sit with Herb Main, because Herb's got a lot of road experience along with myself from the road plan, and we used to go over those main state statutes.
I've
so-
asked him a couple
yeah.
times early on in my, you know, at the beginning of me being a TA, if he would like to be the road commissioner, and he just kind of laughed at me, so.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree, I think that
So
would.
that's my suggestion. I don't think we need a formal motion unless you want one.
Nope.
Not trying to rain on your parade there.
All right, that's good.
Yeah,
All right. No more discussion on this topic. All right, moving on to 23-036 to authorize the town administrator to pay legal bills from Bernstein, Sure, in the amount of $3,673.50 from the Selectmen's contingency account 8331-3160. Is there,
I'll make that motion if I can be reminded what the current balance is in that.
14,000,
Thank you.
We haven't taken any out yet.
correct.
we have,
I'll make the motion.
Second.
okay, seconded by Bob. All right, any discussion? And this was for,
This was the attorney that was hired to help Board of Adjustment appeals.
all right. All right, all in favor? All right. Moving on to 23-037, to authorize the town administrator to pay the legal bills from Jensen Baird
Yep.
in the amount of 4,500 from the Selectmen's contingency account 8300-3160.
So move.
All right,
Second,
seconded by Bob.
I have a question.
Yep.
So I'm assuming that's the amount we need after we've exhausted the current account?
Correct. We have exhausted the current account.
Yeah, I just noticed that number didn't equal the 2 months that were represented in this, so I figured it was the balance. Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Mike, 1 second. My question to you is, these are all the, obviously, these are the ones that you weren't able to put in certain,
Yeah, this
Thank you.
was after the fact.
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
After factoring out for some.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, Karen, thank you.
So just so I understand, maybe you guys already all understand, but the total balance on the bill that we're looking at, which came through in April, is 6918. There was a past due amount of 2418. So the difference, so was the 2418 paid out of the regular legal account?
Correct.
And so it's just the balance of this 4,500. So that wiped out our regular legal account.
Yes.
Okay. And so so the total amount we had in that account was 10,000, is that right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So now we're up to 14,500 on Jensen and Baird, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, but did we take out the bond?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, and now we have, unless I'm calculating wrong, so $5,826.50 in our Selectmen's fund left over, unless I did my math wrong.
Good question.
Yes,
Given that we have 3 months left in the year, right, that are not yet billed from legal services standpoint, and given that at our current burn rate, it's likely that we will exhaust the contingency fund, do we have a plan B? And what might that be?
special town meeting.
Special town meeting would be one, okay.
So,
If Bill-
Selectmen's contingency has 14,000 in it. These numbers, add up to about 8,100. So what, and I mentioned this before, is if, we were gonna use Selectmen's contingency until I was at the point where I felt like we need to recommend special town meeting. What I was kind of waiting for is when we hit that 10 grand mark with the Selectmen's contingency, to come to you and suggest that we hold a special town meeting. Because which at this point realistically, so this is March services, when April services come in. After the April services, we'll probably reach, and then at that point, probably hold a special town meeting. But also, just see what funds. But also trying to be, hoping that with some of these things would dwindle down, but it doesn't seem like that's.
So unless I'm wrong, the only way we can actually get more money into that account is a special town meeting.
That's not the only way. The other way would be to use more of the money from the ARPA funds. I'm not suggesting we do that, but that is an option that is out there legally. legally.
Yeah.
I'm not saying morally, I'm saying legally.
Yeah.
My question,
Understand.
though, was gonna be, at that town meeting, or can we, at that town meeting, vote on moving money from unspent balances in other funds? I know we have that 10% limitation department by department, but that's, we won't be looking for new money, we'll be looking to reallocate money. Is that, am I saying that correctly?
Is it coming from an
It's
undesignated
it's
fund?
a special town meeting, so we can put whatever warrants. It's like holding a regular town meeting, but it would be a special one. So if you want to have a warrant article saying, you know, we want to move money out of X reserve account to, you know, to legal funds, or to move it from transfer station to legal, then yes, it's, you could
Thank
do
you.
that.
Thank you.
Carol,
I guess what's behind that question perhaps, it's kind of confusing in my mind. We've already set the mill rate for this year, so if we have to come up with more money, what happens? Does it adjust the mill, does it?
So what would happen is it would, and I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to speak to it precisely, but when we vote, there is, you know, undesignated funds, so the plan is to do it from that. But I think in this case, to really keep it a smooth process, that I would recommend, and I'm sure, probably the attorney would, to probably move funds from an alternative account, to really keep it clean, and when it comes to auditing purposes, you know, to make the process a little bit easier.
Okay, that was my question.
Thanks,
So my question is, how will the voters know how much was spent in fiscal year 23 for legal services with the contingency fund being used? Is this going to be on the warrant?
So the contingency fund is set up for selectmen to vote on any unplanned expenses that weren't budgeted. So this, because we've exceeded what is allowable expense under the legal budget, that's why it's coming to selectmen to vote to use under selectmen's contingency.
And so how would the voters be informed of that?
It's
in our minutes.
in our minutes from tonight's meeting. We spent all $10,000 from the budget, plus 3673.50, plus 4,500.
So in approving the budget for next year, since we have exhausted a contingency fund this year and the legal fees are ongoing, it would be helpful for the voters to have that information, and there to be an adequate number for legal fees that are projected in 24.
We've been talking about that in the budget
Yeah.
meetings quite a bit. Yeah.
Mark,
So as of right now, we have upped the legal fees for the proposed next budget. And we have also removed some from some other
Consolidated.
area. So right now, we've got $23,000 proposed in legal.
Correct.
Realizing that some of that was already existing in the planning board area and maybe one other area. So we have somewhat addressed your point.
Thank you, and I've been following that and following the conversation, and I'll just say at this rate, we're looking at 100,000, just at the rate that has been established already.
Not
all right,
Me too. Me too.
thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and we need a refresher on what the motion is, or we all know? All right, all in favor? All right, moving on. Next item, no, we did that one. 23-039 to approve the annual town meeting date for June 10th, 2023.
so moved.
Second,
I'll second.
Question?
Carol, second, or Bob? Yes.
Did we choose June 10th because June 3rd was too close, or how did we choose June 10th?
Second Saturday in June. I think
Yeah.
it usually
We
is.
just chose it.
Yeah.
It's always the second Saturday. Bob,
At the risk of being ridiculous and making it personal, I'm going on June 10th. I hate to miss it, but it's a trip I can't change.
So could I ask a quick follow-up question? Would June 3rd be an option for timing wise for everything to be ready?
I can't answer that clearly right now without looking at the calendar and seeing how things,
Okay,
the way we have the warrant and everything is staggered precisely around that date. But I can't answer that.
well, my motion still stands for tonight, and if we can revisit it, then maybe we can.
Could, I'm on June 3rd too. Is there a reason you want to move it to June 3rd that we can discuss or no?
Just earlier.
I think last year was June 5th or something, and I always wait for town meeting.
last year was June 11th.
Oh,
I know because it's always,
stand corrected.
it's always around my birthday, so.
You're right, maybe the year before was June
I
5th.
know it's like.
Anyway, my motion still stands.
I'm happy with June 10th on my birthday.
I'm sorry if you're gonna be gone.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor? All right, other businesses. Business that needs to happen. You have anything, Vika?
No, I have a couple communications, but nothing that
I have a question that I wanted to ask of Vika and us. Have we heard anything from the Hale barging company that was gonna try to do the repairs on the pilings over at Cousins Island yet?
So the information that I received last was it was gonna be mid-April was their anticipated time frame.
Thank you.
All right, communications. Bob.
I've received a series of emails from the chair of the planning board and the chair of the Board of Appeals in discussion. I'll summarize because it's like 10 pages of email, just discussions about all that we've learned as a community, all that we still need to learn as a community relative to the ordinances and some of the things that have caused some of the legal fees, some of the things that have caused some of the pain and angst over the last year. And the discussion thread became one of the potential benefits of a public workshop sometime later in the summer, something like that. Maybe a monthly article in the calendar, maybe on the town website, just a way for people to ask questions about the ordinances, but also a topic of the month. Like, when is 150 feet frontage appropriate, or what do you, if you live on the shore, what things do you need to consider when you're filling out a building permit, things like that. So just wanted to mention that as correspondence. No decisions, something to talk about later, but just thought it was pretty important.
Yeah, interesting. Yes.
In line with that, I submit the notice to the calendar. And it's, another to-do list, and so I just put the very basics. If you ever, as town or as a board, want me to add anything to it, by any means, let me know. But my mindset's always just like, the general open close, but if you want other things, by all means, just let me know. I don't remember, it's on my
20th.
calendar, it reminds me. It's due tomorrow, biting, when I know that.
Yeah, they're rigid about it.
All right, Mark.
We did receive an email tonight before this meeting, and I didn't bring my phone with me. It was from last name of Miles. They have property next to Kim Bain, and they were concerned about the discussion that happened this evening about the request for junk car removal. So they sent us an email. The email was basically letting us know that they had some concerns, and they had some concerns about the town entering into an agreement with someone who may be operating an activity on a piece of property that was not properly zoned.
Okay, yeah. All right. Anybody else? Bob?
I would just point out, I think they did a really nice job of expressing their concerns in a positive way.
I thought so,
Community-oriented
too.
way. I appreciate that on this one.
All right.
Unless I-
I got email from Jackie. I gotta bring it up because I forgot. I printed it and left it at home. So asking, she had a request about if we talk about Venice Cove survey, if we can ask Owen Haskell to be present to interpret the survey with a accompanying large graphic. And then also ask the board to revisit the stop sign at the end of the Bennett's. And then the wooden foot ramp at Chandler's Beach, which I've already asked about, so the crew will look at that. Do you have any comments on that, Jackie, or?
Only that the first two were requests for future agenda items.
Yeah. All right, Carol.
When you say revisit the stop sign, what are you looking for?
I would advocate for more than one stop sign, to be determined. And, maybe one of those could be a yield. I mean, I'm not a traffic expert, although that could be debated. It came into clearer perspective for me one day when I was coming from Chandler's Cove, on the Chandler's Cove Road. And I can't remember whether someone was approaching from South Road. I think that was the case. And I also was more aware of the visibility because I was turning right onto the Bennett's Cove Road. I was more aware of the visibility factor. If someone had been coming out of the Bennett's Cove Road. And yesterday, actually, I was approaching, coming from Bob Dyer's towards the Bennett's Cove Road, and the barge had just come in, and I observed a line of plant truck not stop. Of course, there's no stop sign there.
Okay, I get you.
All right,
It's a multifaceted problem.
all right, thank you.
There is such a thing as freeway stop signs.
Oh, yeah.
We put one in each road there, I mean,
So we'll
I
discuss.
almost got clipped there by two by plant. State driveway.
All
But
right,
they've been spoken to, haven't they?
What?
Haven't
Yeah.
a plant been spoken to about the speed on the island?
yeah,
Probably in the past.
Yeah.
all right, so we'll talk about this in the future agenda.
Definitely future.
All right, any other communications? Yes,
I received, earlier, this week communication from Weston and Sampson. And they're just letting us know that so this is a follow-up email to me contacting them about, having been the firm that, the town picked. Their excitement about the opportunity to work with the town, and they're working on developing a scope of work. And their plan is one of the individuals who's gonna be working on the projects is out, for a time being, and, once he is back, the plan is to finalize the scope and send it for review. And then hoping to have it done by the end of the day on April 28th. If not, hoping by noontime on May 1st. And so I followed up and, thanked them and just told them that if it's possible that we can get it by the 28th, so we have that information for, the meeting, that would be great. And they said that that's, you know, they're gonna try to do their best to accommodate that. So that's that. The other one is just an email that I received from Cumberland County. And it is, them letting, the Towns know that, Cumberland County and City of Portland hired a consultant to create an analysis, of impediments for fair housing report for them. And the final draft was attached in this email, and what they're looking for is, for any, people that are interested in seeing it and providing any comments or feedback to let them know. So
Impediments to fair housing?
for fair housing report, it's like a couple of 100-page document. So if anybody wants to see it, by all means, I can forward it to you. So.
All right, any other communication? All right, moving on to approve the minutes from April 5th, 2023.
So move.
Second.
Okay, any? All right. All in favor? Sorry. All right, items to be placed on future agenda. I got, what's that company's name? Weston?
Weston and Sampson.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Am I right that the next meeting is solely budget, right?
Yes,
Next week.
So we're talking about the week.
it's not just budget, sorry. We have an executive session prior.
Okay,
Budget related.
right.
Yes, budget related. but
So you really talked about the first, you're talking about May going forward.
Yeah, the future is not necessarily the next meeting, it's whenever we decide to put on, whenever we have the information or something. So I have the stop signs for Bennett and then Owen Haskell, survey. Anything else? Carol?
Well, Indian Point, I was just wondering where we're at on that, because last we knew, just kind of, we were gonna have a,
Sorry, I forgot the email.
Okay.
I do apologize.
we just put it on the next agenda for another agenda for an update.
Even if it's just an update.
Yeah, just an update.
Indian Point?
It could even be just an update from the town administrator.
Yeah, either way.
We didn't even, I didn't talk to the landowners either about the parking and stuff, so I don't know if that was our charge or, I can't remember.
I think the way it was left with the group of 6 was that the parking would be on the town to improve.
But I can't remember, we talked briefly about it in our meeting about.
Yeah, I think what we said was you're gonna reach out first and see if there was anything else we can do to help with them, but then we're gonna put the traffic issues on a later
Yeah.
post-budget
okay.
kind of thing.
All right.
Yeah.
And
Thank
I
you.
think before town meeting, my thinking is that it'd be good to sort of have an agreement before town meeting, so that in case it comes up.
And
An
just,
agreement.
Or a meeting of the minds and a story that we all agree on, all parties.
and I think I said this before last meeting, very quickly, Ted Ballard and Phyllis Bruner stopped at my job a week or 2 ago, and they're very interested in talking about that parking, so I didn't stick my nose in like I usually do.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yep,
Junk cars,
the what?
junk cars.
Junk cars.
Clearly, we need a better solution than we have. How do we do that and honor all the work Kim has done?
Mhm.
And it would be great to reach out to other islands and see what they're doing. And again, how do we honor what Kim has done and wants to do? But I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what to drop.
Yeah.
And then I had another one. Beyond just the Bennett's stop sign, what is the status of the overall signs issue? We talked several meetings ago about the town crew maybe doing an inventory of what signs we had in place as part of developing a plan for how to restore. And then I've heard a rumor that we found the old signs.
That wasn't a rumor. That was a phone call. We received.
Magically appeared, did they?
Yeah, person who was, the property,
The property that abuts, Kids Place.
Kids Place,
property.
a woman called and found all the signs in her backyard.
So it was the kids' place, kids.
That's
Blame it on Eddie.
Did the town crew take down the road signs, the stop signs, because all of a sudden one day, the stop signs and everything on a lot of roads are missing. And I questioned the kids and they didn't know enough to it.
We thought it was you.
Well, I got four licenses. I still got someone from the safety. What are you talking about?
How much are you asking for?
I'll sell them back.
Someone removed them or.
I know, road crew did.
No.
They disappeared, but they have turned up. Nika told me last.
They make special nuts and bolts, you know, that a Tampa group.
We,
In here.
Yeah,
we've talked about this in detail. Yeah.
well,
Many
Yeah,
of
so-
them, well, I don't know, there was many or several. The metal post was sawed off.
Yeah,
They were cut
Yeah.
above those metal screws.
yeah, I saw that. I mean, there's still some places still post standing and the signs are gone.
Yes.
Yes.
Super dangerous.
so we're not gonna be talking about this right now.
Well,
What did
this
you,
may
what did
be,
you say, Bob?
We're not gonna be, this is gonna be a topic, we're gonna go on for an hour about, so.
It's a future agenda item. It's not an agenda
Yeah.
item tonight.
this may be a question or a request more than a future agenda item, but I would like to request that the discussions resume with the golf course sometime soon about that property down there. I think that's you and Jen.
It is. Yeah.
So I think that would probably be a good thing to start talking about again to see if we can get any momentum.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Facilities Committee will be doing a presentation on the next agenda item. And according to the calendar, the next, so not next week, but that week after, is supposed to be the final budget discussion.
And we haven't heard that.
We haven't.
Okay.
So because I was late, I missed the part where the public had their comment.
Yes.
Can I make a comment?
It's gonna be
I'm
quick.
fire all
All
you
right.
guys. No. You're all fired. I had just thought about the stone pier and the pilings. Well, they cost a lot of money, those pilings.
Mhm.
And the top of them was splitting all apart, and I've been asked somebody to maintain them. And the longer it takes, the lower the split gets, and the pilings stop using their best use. It's not just for the boat to shake up against, it's above it, just high stuff goes. And I noticed that some of those white caps are going off on the breakwater. Isn't it under maintenance to replace stuff like that? I mean, that should be a town budget thing, shouldn't it? To replace a cap and maintain those islands and clean up some of the trash barrels that are over the bank and down the stone pier we used to block it off when we had our flood. That's over the bank and down there now.
Yeah.
And I haven't said anything for a long time about it, but
Well, we can look at the trash cans to see if the town crew can fish them out.
I didn't want to say that.
As far as the pilings, that should be, we should have that in our budget as far as a maintenance line.
I mean, shouldn't that be an ongoing maintenance thing to maintain the structure, wooden structure of the stone pier, not just the granite? I mean, that stuff doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think some of them, islands might have come from Africa. Because there's, I don't know, they call it ironwood or something like that, but, so they last longer, but now they're split.
All right, well, thank you. We'll put it on our radar.
Okay,
And
thank you,
hopefully we'll get that resolved
thank you.
sooner than later.
And to revisit something I just said, you're all fired. I get paid to say that, by the way.
All right.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Any
coming.
other items?
No.
Do you guys have any other items?
No, but that doesn't mean a few won't arise between now and then.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
all right, there's a second.
Second.
All right,
Good meeting.
all in favor?
All in favor?
I gotta be-
Oh, no, I'm just telling you guys, you were all in favor. That's all.